3 Haunted Dreams Revealed, Sinister Realities That Terrify and Curse Those Who Discover Them. Emily tossed and turned in the darkness, heart racing as she was pulled deeper into the tumultuous void of nightmares. Something waited, something that raked icy fingers down her spine. She woke with a start, breathless and covered in cold sweat, her mind echoing with terror from the latest horrifying episode. The whispers of those cursed dreams lingered like a shadow over her, stoking the fires of her anxiety. Her new life in Maplewood, meant to be a refuge for her and her children, felt suddenly fragile and menacing, like a papier-mâché facade waiting to collapse. As night deepened around her, tinged with an unsettling stillness, the house creaked ominously. Shadows seemed to flit along the walls, shapes twisting just beyond her perception. A shiver ran through her. She closed her eyes, but the visions flooded back. Dark faces from her past. Memories she fought hard to bury. Emily forced herself to rise, needing coffee to steady her frayed nerves. Just as she poured, she recalled the story of the dream journal she had found earlier, each page a warning wrapped in sensational tales of dread. What compelled her to peek inside? Each entry promised to unveil cursed realities that ensnared the unknowing dreamers. There it was, beneath the loose floorboard, waiting to grip her imagination and heart with its sinister truths. Could it really hold power? She dismissed the notion as she flipped through the yellowed pages, but the weak light from the kitchen barely sent wavering warmth against the chill creeping through her veins. Shadows grew longer. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The first entry twisted her stomach. A dream of darkness consuming a woman who discovered the faces of those she had lost. Emily scoffed at the dramatics, but that night, she lay in bed paralyzed, awash in panic as ghosts of her past danced behind her eyelids. The specter of her ex looming larger than any house shadow. She woke soaked in dread. The next morning, as sunlight bled into the sky, she glanced out her window to see Mrs. Roberts on the porch, watching her with a grin that sent ice through her blood. Days blended into sleepless nights. Each entry she read twisted her psyche further, feeding tangible fears that anchored in the creaks and cracks of her home. She saw the neighbors with new eyes, a retired cop hiding secrets, a smile from the school teacher that didn't quite reach her eyes. Then the horrible truth sunk in: missing children, unexplained absences, whispers that pulsed against her ears with an urgency that terrified her. Something was wrong in Maplewood, and Lucy was now talking about a dark figure lurking just outside her window, watching her intently. Emily's heart raced. Gritting her teeth, she felt the walls closing in as the door swung open. Shadows stirred. Fear coursed through her like poison. Who was watching? A clawing darkness seeped through. In that moment, all hope shuddered. Could she face the nightmare lurking in her suburban sanctuary? Would she save her children, or was the darkness already inside? The hardest choice lay ahead, breath caught in her throat, as dread settled deep within her bones, a chilling reality that demanded she act before it was too late. Emily's breath grew shallow as she tried to push the fear aside, but it clung to her like a festering wound. She glanced at the clock. 3 a.m., the haunted hour. As shadows danced tauntingly across her living room, she could no longer deny it. The house had a heartbeat of its own, pulsing in rhythm with her rising dread. She could hear Lucy stirring in her room, whispering half-formed sentences that wrestled with sleep and nightmares. Emily's heart crunched painfully in her chest. What if the darkness had wrapped its tendrils around her daughter too? The thought ignited a rush of fear that demanded to be answered. Swallowing hard, she hesitated before creeping down the hallway. Each creak of the floorboard sent jolts of panic through her. What if she found something? Or worse, what if she didn't? She paused, the thick air pressing around her. The voices from the dream journal echoed in her ears, warning her about what lay in wait. There were references to broken families, twisted realities, and dreams that ensnared their anchors until it was too late to let go. She reached Lucy's closed door, heart drumming like a war march. A sliver of light slipped through the cracks, illuminating a shadow that danced against the wall. Emily's mind raced with a million possibilities. In one swift motion, she opened the door. But what greeted her was darker than she expected. The room was empty, toys scattered about like evidence from a struggle. Lucy's bed sat undisturbed, quilt neatly tucked, but the air felt stifling and heavy. A chill coiled around Emily's spine as she scanned the room, searching for that tiny figure of innocence. "Lucy?" she called softly. No response. Just the hollow echoes of her own voice. Panic ignited a fire within her, and she turned to the closet, heart thundering louder with each step. What if the darkness had taken her, devoured her whole? As she drew closer, a whisper floated from within, soft and gentle, yet invasive. "Mommy, help me." Time seemed to stop. That voice, threaded with terror and pleading, rolled through her like a cold wave. With a swift movement, she flung open the closet door, and darkness poured out, swallowing the light and her strength. The shadows coiled, thick and clawing, reaching for her, and she stumbled back in terror. Just then, the sound of her front door creaked echoed throughout the house. A presence had slipped in, bold and relentless. She turned and bolted for the staircase, desperate for safety, heart racing like the drummer of doom. The familiar home suddenly morphed into a labyrinth, dark corners swelling with eyes that shouldn't exist. As she reached the top, the sound of Lucy's laughter echoed, high-pitched and chilling, as if it belonged to someone else. Emily gasped, clenching her fists. "Lucy!" she shouted, a small voice raising against the darkness. But where was she? The laughter twisted into shrieks that clawed at her resolve. She forced herself to the edge of reason. Emily remembered the journal, how each page hinted at a deeper truth. Was there still time? Was the curse unbreakable? She needed answers, and the long-abandoned attic loomed above, where the remnants of past lives lingered like a thick fog. With tension gripping her throat, she knew she had to go up, to face the echo of her waking nightmares. Could she unravel the mystery before it consumed all she loved? Or would she too be swallowed whole, forgotten like so many before her? As she set her sights on the staircase leading to the attic, an icy breath floated against her neck, and she froze. Something was watching from the shadows. Her heart thundered in her ears, her resolve was starting to fray. Would she dare confront the truth that awaited her above? Emily held her breath, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. The attic door stood before her, old and warped, as if it had been fatigued by years of secrets. With a tremor in her hands, she reached for the doorknob, and felt a wave of cold wash over her, almost reluctant to let her enter. The door creaked open with an eerie familiarity, revealing a cramped, dust-laden space beneath the slanted roof. It was dimly lit by a single, flickering bulb that swung like a pendulum, casting battling shadows across the wooden beams. Old boxes cluttered the floor, remnants of forgotten times waiting in silence. A musty smell assaulted her nostrils, the scent of decay and lost memories. "Lucy?" she whispered, stepping inside. Her voice barely broke the stillness, fading into the corners of the attic where darkness seemed to swell and breathe like a beast. She felt eyes on her, cold and judging. Shivers raced down her spine. The thought of Lucy alone somewhere in this house sent her heart racing again. She frantically scanned the attic for any sign or clue. Her breath hitched when she stumbled upon the old sewing machine, but it was the cabinet beside it that drew her in. Wooden and weathered, the cabinet creaked as she opened it. Inside, old doll heads stared back at her, chipped and lifeless. A glint of something metallic caught her eye, and she unearthed an ornate key glimmering with a thin layer of dust. It looked significant, almost as if it belonged to another era, a time before everything went wrong. She pocketed the key, feeling an unsettling thrill racing through her blood. Perhaps it could unlock answers, maybe even a way out. But what door did it fit? The attic descended further into darkness, but a familiar laugh pierced through. It was Lucy, giggling like she hadn't a care in the world. The sound slithered into Emily's heart, both comforting and terrifying. It felt wrong, almost out of place. "Lucy?" Emily shouted, panic rising in her throat. "Mommy, come play," the voice echoed, yet it was too bright, too playful. A child's laughter shouldn't reverberate in a house wrought with despair. Feeling drawn to the shadows, Emily followed the sound. Her feet carried her deeper into the attic's recesses until she came upon an open hatchway concealed behind an old trunk. It was dark below, a blackness that felt alive, throbbing and hungry. The laughter grew louder, increasingly desperate. Summoning her courage, she leaned closer. "Lucy?" Suddenly, the hatch crashed open, spilling darkness across the floor. A shape darted past her, flitting into the darkness of the hatch. Emily was momentarily breathless. Was it Lucy? She had to know. With a determination born of horror, she peered into the void below. But there was something else there, a presence, something biding its time. She felt icy fingers graze her arm, a breath so cold it snatched the warmth from her body. In that moment, she understood, whatever lived in that darkness was filled with malice. The laughter twisted, warping into a wail of despair. "You shouldn't have come here," a voice hissed, chilling her to the bone, echoing with the sound of countless others. Emily stumbled back, her heart hammering in her chest. The attic felt like a trap closing around her. She glanced back at the slab of wood that sealed the hatch, aware that leaving might mean losing Lucy forever. She gripped the key tightly, knowing it could lead her to a new revelation or to her doom. She made her choice. Whatever lay beyond the hatch, she had to confront it. But when she turned back, the laughter had shifted again, now tinged with mocking notes, daring her to follow. With a deep breath, she stepped forward into the unfolding blackness where only nightmares dwelled. Could she reclaim what was hers, or was the house preparing to swallow her whole? When her foot slipped into the shadows, she sensed she was spiraling into a truth that was darker than she could imagine. What waited in that dark abyss? Would it lead to Lucy's freedom, or to an eternal haunting? Emily took a tentative step into the abyss, heart pounding, drowning in silence as if the world had folded in on itself. Shadows swirled around her, waiting, but her resolve hardened with every haunting echo of Lucy's voice. "Mommy, come play," the words twisted in the air, almost mocking her fear. She felt a heavy weight of dread settle in her chest as she ventured further down, the key clenched tightly in her fist. Each step felt sacrilegious, as if the house was whispering warnings she refused to heed. As she descended, the air thickened, cold and suffocating. The laughter faded into a low murmur, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. Emily squinted into the darkness, hoping to catch a glimpse of Lucy, yet the deeper she went, the more shadows danced, taunting her. Her foot hit something slimy and she recoiled, her eyes widening in terror. She was standing in an underground chamber, the walls glistening, pulsating with a wetness that chilled her bones. Feral whispers echoed around her, and she realized it wasn't just shadows that lurked in the dark. It was a fevered throng of shapes swarming, moving closer as if drawn by her very presence. Gathering what remained of her courage, she yelled, "Lucy!" The answer was a sharp silence, then a chorus of faint giggles erupted, turning into shrill screams that sliced through the air. It felt alive, the laughter, a hungry beast lurking just out of sight. Fumbling in her pocket, she pulled out the key and felt its cool metallic edge. It felt wrong, so wrong, to hope that it would somehow help her navigate this nightmare. But Lucy's giggles were morphing into something more troubling, echoing with an eerie familiarity that twisted her stomach. "Please help me," a voice pleaded, but it wasn't Lucy's. It was layered, distorted, dripping despair. Emily's blood ran cold. It was then that she saw the shapes moving closer, twisted silhouettes of children, their faces void of expression, just empty sockets where eyes should have been. Their laughter bubbled up again, but with every heartbeat, it darkened, turning into a cacophony of haunting wails. She stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. The figures edged nearer, their mouths stretching into ghastly grins. "Come play!" they cried in unison, their voices harmonizing into a chilling symphony. Emily felt her sanity slip, the walls closing in as if threatening to crush her. What had she stumbled into? What had her daughter become amidst this darkness? This place demanded offerings, and her presence felt like an intrusion. Summoning strength, she shouted defiantly, "Stay back!" But it was a weak protest, a flicker of flame in an encroaching darkness as shadows lunged with a feral desire. Suddenly, a piercing shriek erupted, and a swirl of smoke coiled at the chamber's center. A figure emerged, ethereal and shrouded, its form shifting like a flickering candle. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of jagged teeth, and turned towards Emily with an intensity that froze her in place. "Your turn to play," it hissed, and Emily felt the ground tremble beneath her. Panic engulfed her as she pressed the key to her chest, desperate for guidance, salvation, anything to pull her away from this hellish reality. The figure pointed to an old, rusted lock on the wall behind it, pulsating with an eerie glow. Was it the exit? Did hope still flicker in this den of despair? Or was it another of the house's wicked tricks? With a breath of despair, she lunged towards the lock, praying it would break the spell of the anguished laughter surrounding her. But as she reached for it, the laughter crescendoed into hysteria, and Emily realized in horror, what if she wasn't meant to escape? What if the key wasn't just for a door, but something far darker? As her hand reached the lock, she hesitated, her heart gripped tight by fear. Was this the moment her life unraveled, or the key to save Lucy? What awaited her behind that lock, and would she dare to unleash its ancient secrets? Emily's hand hovered over the lock, trembling. A cold sweat ran down her spine. The laughter increased, roiling around her like a storm, feeding on her fear. She closed her eyes for just a heartbeat, trying to drown out the chaos closing in, trying to focus on Lucy's face. "Think," she whispered urgently to herself. What would Lucy want? But the archetype of innocence her daughter once was seemed battered and broken in this place, swallowed by darkness. The silhouettes inched closer, their breaths a chorus of low growls that rumbled in her chest. "Come," Emily called, a distorted voice, a whisper so sweet, it turned sour in her ears. "Play with us." The urge to flee surged through her, but the key felt alive in her palm, buzzing with a terrible energy. In that moment, everything froze. The figures halted, eyes, or where eyes should have been, locking onto her, awaiting her decision. Would she abandon the key and run? Or would she plunge deeper into the abyss she had unwittingly embraced? With a sudden pivot in her mind, she gripped the key harder, steeling herself. She didn't just want to survive, she needed to find Lucy. So many questions clamped around her thoughts. What secrets were buried in this house? What had happened to her daughter? "Unlock the truth," she muttered fiercely, and pressed the key into the ancient lock. It turned easily, as if liberating long-buried horrors. As it clicked open, an agonized wail erupted from the shadows, vibrating through her bones. The sound was a living thing, as if dread itself had come to life. Before the door swung wide, she had a fleeting vision, a heartbeat of Lucy smiling, playful, eyes gleaming under sunshine. It shattered into images of pain, darkness. Emily gasped. Was her daughter trapped in the same torment? The door creaked open, revealing an abyss beyond, deeper than any darkness she had known. But it wasn't just an empty void. As the stench of decay wafted toward her, Emily felt bile rise in her throat. Shadows twisted, revealing grotesque scenes, children no older than Lucy, trapped in their own nightmarish dreams, moaning in anguish. "Help us," they cried, their voices mingling into a ghostly chorus that clawed at her heart. No. Not her child. Not Lucy. Spurred by an instinct more powerful than fear, she stumbled into the room beyond the door, the key dropping to the floor with a clang as her eyes widened. In the very center, suspended as if in a net of shadows, was Lucy. Her form flickered like a candle in the wind, shifting between innocent toddler and the empty visage of the shadow children. "Mommy!" Lucy squeaked, a mixture of hope and despair in her voice, but before Emily could reach her, the room trembled, the shadows undulating with fury. The figures surrounding her grew restless, their mouths twisting into angry snarls as they lunged toward her. "Your turn," they whispered, and Emily's heart lodged in her throat. Overwhelmed, she stumbled back, realizing she had stepped into a trap. This was not an escape, this was a reckoning. "Say goodbye to Mommy," they shrieked, their laughter slicing through the air like ice. The memories of joy faded, all hope beginning to drown in the chaos. Emily had one choice left: she needed to fight. With a primal scream, she launched herself toward Lucy, reaching her just as tendrils of darkness surged to pull her away. Would her love be enough to break the cycle? Would anything save them from what lay ahead? As she grabbed Lucy's hand, a burst of energy surged through both of them, a connection that transcended this macabre realm. But what other horrors awaited in this terrifying game of shadows? Would Emily's defiance unearth unspeakable truths or seal their fates forever? The shadows whispered louder, thrumming with anticipation, as she held her daughter's hand tightly and plunged into the chaos. What long-buried secrets awaited them in the depths of despair? As Emily gripped Lucy's small hand, a jolt of defiance surged between them. The shadows roared, a symphony of anguished yowls echoing around the room. The darkness pulsed, feeding on her fear, but it also vibrated with a wicked hunger for their bond. It was as if her love lit a beacon against the terror surrounding them. "Stay close," she yelled, her voice cracking, as the vile figures pulled closer. They swirled, a ravenous tide threatening to drown her in despair. Each breath felt like inhaling shards of ice. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lucy whimpered, her innocent eyes glimmering with unshed tears that mirrored the horror she quickly understood. "Focus on my voice," Emily commanded, each word a desperate anchor in this maelstrom. The shadows hissed with fury, their forms shifting, distorting into grotesque versions of children she instinctively recognized, their eyes hollow, their smiles twisted by agony. With a fierce resolve, Emily pulled Lucy closer, scanning the room for a way out. It had to exist. There had to be a path that could lead them back to the sunlight, back to safety. "Look for a door. Something," she urged, her heart racing as tendrils poked and prodded, trying to separate them. The air thickened with rancid dampness, every corner of the space whispering horrors of what lay beyond the shadows, a sick, suffocating cloak of despair. "Mommy," Lucy cried, her small voice brittle and fading. Emily tightened her grip, refusing to let darkness steal her child. Suddenly, a sharp flash cut through her vision, an old window, cracked and caked in grime yet still glimmering in the distance, a tiny shard of hope. The walls around them vibrated with a malevolent hum, responding to their desire to escape. "Over there!" Emily shouted, her heart pounding hard enough to drown out the cacophony. "We can reach it, Lucy." Together, they lunged toward the window as shadows surged forward. The figure's laughter twisted into a high-pitched wail, echoing off every surface, the sound rattling her bones. "You can't leave. You belong to us." Emily's mind raced. "No. We'll take you with," she halted, realizing the horror of her own words. They had claimed the innocence of countless souls. Desperation fueled her as she dove towards the glass, lunging with every ounce of strength. "Now, Lucy." Her voice broke the intensity as they reached the window, arms outstretched. Emily hurled them both through, and for a moment everything shifted, the shadows faded, giving way to a blinding light. But it was short-lived. Instead of freedom, they tumbled into darkness once more, falling hard against unforgiving ground. The laughter returned, louder and more volatile, as the shadows threatened to engulf them yet again. "Emily!" A voice echoed deep within the dark. It was Lucy, calling to her from beyond. "Help me, Mommy." Embers of terror ignited within Emily's chest. "I'm right here." Panic gripped her as she spun around, searching for the source of Lucy's plea. The darkness was alive, swirling like mist and teasing her sanity. "Lucy!" Where are you? She yelled, her voice meeting only silence. The laughter ceased, creating an eerie stillness that made her skin crawl, yet, in that vacuous silence, a thought pierced through a chilling revelation that sent ice coursing down her spine. What if Lucy wasn't with her at all? What if this was a trick? Could this darkness be playing with her mind, feeding her false hopes at every turn? Then, through a thin veil of shadows, she saw a figure emerge, a girl, her blurry silhouette burgeoning with innocence yet warped by sorrow. "Mommy, help!" It was the same voice, but it felt wrong, tainted. Emily hesitated, a swell of dread pooling in her stomach. Was this a mirage, a cruel puppet crafted from her fear? Or was it truly Lucy? "Lucy! Is that really you?" She screamed, hope mingling with confusion. The figure stepped closer, its features sharpening into the familiar visage of her child, but distorted, corrupted. "Mommy, please!" The shadows danced, laughing once more as Emily struggled to understand. "What are you?" she whispered, full of disbelief. The laughter ebbed into a sickening hush, the figure grinned with broken innocence. And as it spoke, a whisper wrapped around her, filling her with the knowledge that there were no safe choices left. "Find the truth, Emily, or lose everything." As clutching dread anchor chained to her heart, she knew she had only one option left, to seek the truth hidden within. What lay beneath the surface of this nightmare? And at what cost would the truth be revealed? Shadows bound tighter with anticipation, their thick energy suffocating her thoughts. Emily's heart raced as she braced for the dark secrets to unveil. What past lay ahead, and how would it shatter her reality once and for all? The shadows writhed and pulsed around Emily, a churning sea of darkness that seemed to breathe heavily, alive with malice. She stood her ground, heart hammering against her ribcage, teeth gritted. "What truth?" she demanded, the tremor in her voice betraying her fear. "What do you want from us?" The distorted figure continued to edge closer, its face a monochrome of sorrow and malice, a mere echo of her daughter. "Come find me, Mommy," it murmured, the once sweet tone twisted into a sickening mockery. Suddenly, the world around Emily fractured. The black space she occupied disintegrated into shards of glass, each piece a memory, reflecting fragments of her past. She gasped as images surged forth, her first day bringing Lucy home from the hospital, her laughter in the park, bedtime stories, and moments of serene joy. But then, the light turned grotesque as shadowy specters emerged from the glass shards. They were familiar, she realized with a chill. They were the faces of all the children who had vanished before Lucy, each one hauntingly twisted, each one crying out, "Help us!" She stumbled back, repulsed, yet unable to tear her eyes away. "Don't you see?" the specter of Lucy taunted, leaning forward with a sick grin. "It's all connected. You have to remember. They're all waiting for you." The shadows began to close in, their whispers filling the air like the whispers of the damned. "No!" Emily choked out, shaking her head violently as she pressed her palms against her temples. Memories fused into a chaotic storm, overwhelming her senses. Could it be? Had she overlooked something crucial? The walls of the darkness vibrated with energy, sensing her confusion and despair. "Devotion is a dangerous drug," Emily the spectre hissed, its form swirling like smoke. Emily fought to make sense of the madness, the weight of despair pressing down on her. Between gasps, she spoke through clenched teeth, "You think you can control me? I will find Lucy." "Only if you uncover the truth," the figure replied, the words slipping out like a fading echo. "The truth that binds us all." With a sudden perilous leap, Emily raced into the darkness, propelled by fierce determination. She had to find the fragments that held the key memories, clues, anything that could show her where Lucy truly was. Through shadows that reached for her like clawed hands, Emily dove deep, intent on carving a path through this terror. "Mommy!" The call resonated around her, but not just from the twisted figure anymore. It echoed from countless others, a chorus of lost voices, filling her with dread yet urging her onward. The shadows fluttered angrily, twisting into hideous faces, each vibrating with fury at her defiance. muffled visions flickered before her eyes. A door, was that it? In the distance, an ancient wooden door loomed, bathed in a creeping mist. You have to hurry. The voices rang out, their urgency sharp. She bolted towards it, the shadows clawing at her, their frigid fingers grazing her skin like icy daggers. Every ounce of will propelled her forward. Time stretched and warped as she sprinted, the door a glimmering promise of salvation or perhaps further entrapment. As she neared, the figure of Lucy intermingled with the shadows, the child's face now desperate and pleading. "Mommy! I need you! Lucy!" Emily shrieked, stretching her hand out towards her, but just as she grasped the doorknob, the shadows erupted in a cacophony of shrieks and roars, swirling violently to block her path. The door rattled beneath her grip as the shadows hissed, a dreadful wave of dark energy pushing her back. "Stop! You can't go in there!" They howled, accompanied by laughter so haunting it made her skin crawl. Emily felt her heart drop. What lay behind that door? "Find the truth, Emily, or lose everything," the mocking whisper echoed again, chilling her resolve. The shadows encircled her more tightly, and she felt their anger, their insatiable hunger for her despair. What lay behind that door? Was it the truth she sought, or a deeper darkness that threatened to consume her forever? With a breath stealing her resolve, Emily clenched the doorknob tighter. All she needed was one answer, one chance to rescue Lucy from the clutches of the shadows, but would she be brave enough to face whatever awaited her on the other side? A new terror was rising, and as she stood at the precipice, she could almost feel it reaching through. What sacrifices would she have to make? The door creaked open ever so slightly, and the shadows exhaled like a living thing, a sinister invitation to step into the unknown. As the door creaked open wider, a cold gust of stale air rushed into Emily's face, carrying the sense of damp earth and decay. Shadows writhed like serpents behind her, their whispers escalating into a cacophony of desperate cries that clawed at her sanity. Her breath hitched as she stared into the darkness beyond the threshold. It beckoned her, a twisted invitation each second drawing her closer to an uncertain fate. Gathering every shred of courage, she pushed the door fully open. The hinges screeched, a protest into the oppressive fog. What greeted her was a room, or a space that used to be one. Old photographs lined the walls, their subjects contorted and age-worn, the smiles painted over with an eerie distortion. Wherever she looked, the eyes of the portraits seemed to follow her, judging, pleading. "Mommy!" The voice of Lucy echoed again, but now it wasn't just a call, it was an entreaty, a note of pure desperation that sent shards of ice racing through Emily's veins. She responded instinctively, her instincts sharpening into a resolve as she stepped further inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind her with a deafening boom, plunging the room into an ominous silence, thick enough to smother her cries. Panic rose within her, fierce as anger. "Lucy!" she shouted, but her voice cracked, swallowed by the shadows. Before she could gather her thoughts, an array of shadows fanned out from the walls, swirling and coiling toward her like predatory beasts. Each wisp shimmered with energy, the latent sorrow of countless lost souls. They drew closer, their whispers morphing into a unified chant that echoed through her mind. "Find us, free us, save her." Images blazed through Emily's thoughts, sharp and explosive visions of Lucy flanked by unfamiliar children, bright eyes shining bright with hope. The recollection flickered momentarily before it was shrouded again in darkness. Why did she feel memories intertwining with those of other children? Was this what the specter meant? "Stop!" she yelled, cycling through her fears and regrets, desperately clinging on to the last remaining threads of her sanity as they tried to choke her. But her anger morphed into something stronger, a determination to uncover the truth. Let her go. Let them all go. The shadows recoiled momentarily, their whispers halting, replaced by a chilling laughter that echoed off the walls, reverberating in her bones. "Do you even know what you're asking for?" Then, a light flickered in the darkness. A single flame ignited, illuminating a small patch of the room. As it spread, it revealed the corner where a makeshift altar stood, cluttered with dolls and trinkets, remnants of lives once vibrant. They were made from twigs and scraps, bizarre representations of the children who once played here. Each bore a name, scrawled in smeared ink, one of which caught her breath, a tiny doll crafted in Lucy's likeness. "No," Emily whispered, terror wrapping around her heart like iron chains. "No, no, no." Before she could turn away, the shadows surged, filling the room with an anguished roar as they wrapped around her, a wave of cold despair smothering her hopes. "The truth isn't simple, Emily," they hissed, latching onto her shoulders, pulling her down. "It's all connected and you are part of it." Emily racked her brain, spotting another flicker of light in the periphery. She focused hard, willing her body to fight through the thick, suffocating darkness. A battered mirror, standing neglected against the wall, caught the growing flame. She reached out for it, drawn to the flickering reflection. Would it show her Lucy? As she approached, the glass began to ripple, morphing into grotesque shapes. Faces began to emerge, children with wide, pleading eyes, their lips forming silent pleas for help. And there, among them, was Lucy, her tiny hands pressed against the glass, her expression a haunting mixture of sadness and fear. "Mommy." Lucy's voice pierced through the cacophony, and Emily felt her heart twist painfully. "You have to save me." The mirror began to crack. Spiderwebs cascading across its surface, each fracture pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Fear and urgency crashed over Emily like a tidal wave. What if this was the key? "Please!" Lucy cried, desperately reaching forward. Before Emily could respond, the room shuddered, shadows tightening around her like vices. "You can't escape the truth," they demanded, their voices merging into a screeching crescendo. Then came a voice, older and far more sinister. "What will you sacrifice?" Time hung suspended, the air thick with dread. Emily's mind raced as the mirror quaked wildly, threatening to shatter into oblivion. Would she have to give up everything to save Lucy? Or would that decision seal her fate, forever entwined with the shadows lurking in the darkness? The mirror began to vibrate violently, the weight of the impending choice heavy on her chest. With tears brimming, she reached out to the glass. "I'll do it. I'll do anything." But even as she spoke, a sinister laughter erupted, echoing within the very core of her being. What price would she pay for the truth? How much darkness would she need to embrace to pull Lucy back into the light? And as the glass splintered, Emily knew the moment was at hand, but the shadows were stirring, roused by her determination. Would they let her through, or would they drag her deeper into despair? "I need you," she cried as she pressed her palm against the chaotic surface, desperate for the truth that awaited her. But would she be ready for the cost of awakening the hidden horrors? The fractured mirror exploded into a cascade of jagged shards, each piece reflecting fleeting glimpses of terrified faces, all hoarding secrets, trapped in a world that defied escape. Emily stumbled back, her heart racing, as the shadows swelled, roaring with fury, clawing at her with icy fingers. The air vibrated with their anger, echoing a warning she couldn't ignore. "Do you truly wish to know?" they hissed, their voices swirling like a tempest, each syllable thick with malice. "Your daughter's fate is entwined with ours, and we will not let her go without a cost." Each breath felt like a struggle as she fought the urge to run, but she was drawn back, staring at the shards as if they held the answers she craved. The children trapped within the reflection stared at her, their eyes wide with unshed tears and disbelief. Though real, there was an unsettling familiarity, a collective memory entwined with her own. "Lucy!" she screamed, desperation fueling her voice. The very fabric of the room seemed to ripple at her call, shadows flickering and buzzing around her like wasps agitated by a threat. "Mommy!" Lucy's voice, faint but cutting through the chaos, pulled Emily forward. She moved instinctively, trying to gather the pieces of the shattered mirror, feeling a strange compulsion toward the chaos, as if the glass was an extension of her own entrapment. As she bent closer, a piece glimmered, reflecting a vision that momentarily calmed her rising panic. It showed not just Lucy, but her own childhood a vivid scene rife with laughter, sunshine, and family dinners. Why now? What did that have to do with the darkness suffocating her? Then, an even darker image flared up, obscuring the warmth, a sepulchral scene where the children from the portraits gathered around her, but they were not playing. They whispered her name, drowned in sorrow, their tiny hands reaching through the shards as if trying to tear their way into the light. "Help us," one of them mouthed, desperation breaking through the silence that hovered like a pall. Emily recoiled, fear rippling through her as that gnarled truth threatened to break free. "Your past is here, and it's worse than you think." "No." Emily grasped her head, battling the swell of memories. The sorrow crept in, bringing her own fears crashing violently to the surface, her inability to save Lucy, to protect her from the shadows, just as her parents had failed to shield her from the harsh realities of neglect. The memories coiled around her legs, heavy as chains. The laughter of the shadows returned, a guttural sound echoing with mockery. "You've forgotten, haven't you? The price is beyond mere tragedy, it goes back generations. What did your family sacrifice to have you? What do you think you will have to endure?" Emily's heart raced as the truth wrapped around her like a noose. Images danced in and out of focus, the cold, lifeless eyes of the dolls, the remnants of whispered promises that melted into unbearable screams. "Stop!" she wailed, shaking with the weight of realization. A small glimmer caught her attention within the chaotic remnants strewn before her. It was a locket, silver and tarnished, half buried beneath the shards of glass. She picked it up, and in that moment, the world around her seemed to freeze. The locket yielded to her touch, the surface warming against her palm. Inside, a picture of Lucy, smiling brightly despite the darkness surrounding them. "Find the truth, Mommy," the shadows urged, their whispers weaving through her thoughts like smoke. "Discover what was lost, or everything will be consumed." "Is this my sacrifice?" she murmured, trapped between fear and a desperate resolve. "Is it all I have left?" As the shadows swelled, a single solitary scream pierced through, shattering the groans of the room. It was Lucy's voice, echoing, haunting a plea that transcended time. In that moment, Emily made her choice, a choice that would tear open the fabric of her reality. She pressed the locket to her heart, glaring defiantly at the swirling shadows. "Then guide me. Show me what I need to do." But as she uttered the words, a sinister wind howled, and the room began to quaver. The floor split before her feet, a gaping chasm appearing where the shadows called her deeper into their embrace. The price was being revealed, but the true horror was yet to come. What awaited her in that dark abyss? Would she find Lucy, or would it consume them both? Darkness enveloped Emily, pulling her closer into its depths. As she stood on the precipice, a vortex of shadows surged upward, hissing in a collective madness. The shadows were alive, quaking with rage. "You think you can fight?" they taunted, the air thick with disdain. "You are one of us." But deep within her, a flicker of determination ignited. "I am more than your prey," she shouted, her voice echoing with defiance. "I will find my daughter." The shadows shrieked in response, the noise a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. The locket, still warm against her heart, pulsed with the quiet promise of a glimmering truth. And in that moment of chaos, images flooded her mind, memories of joy, laughter, all mixed with dark specters of fear. For every sweet memory of Lucy, there were the hollow gazes of lost children, their pain intertwining with her own. With each breath, Emily inched closer to the abyss, battling the twisting shadows that threatened to pull her away. "Find the truth," she repeated, and the shadows responded with a violent thrash, sweeping closer, mocking her resolve. "Your truth is agony," they roared, but Emily pressed on, her heart pounding in sync with the rhythm of the turmoil surrounding her. She needed to reach Lucy. She knew now that the children of the past were tied to her in ways she could never have understood before. They were a thread in her story, and her soul bore the weight of countless sacrifices made long before her. As the shadows quaked and howled, Emily turned the locket in her hands and focused on Lucy's face within it. "You can do this, Emily," she whispered to herself. "You can save her." With her heart racing like a war drum, she tossed the locket into the gap, a signal of her undying love and an offering to the dark gods that held Lucy captive. "I choose hope," she declared, pure and unyielding. Light erupted from her action, flooding the dark chamber with a blinding radiance. The shadows recoiled, shrieking and writhing as the light fought against their encroaching darkness. Figures of neglected children flickered in and out, their faces now clearer, filled with both sorrow and anticipation. They bore witness to Emily's courage. "Help us!" they cried, their voices merging into a haunting chorus that swirled around her. But among them, Lucy's voice pierced like an arrow of clarity. "Mommy! I'm here." Guided by love, Emily charged into the light, drawn to the tender plea. "Lucy! I'm coming!" she cried out, her voice resilient as heartbeats joined in a rhythm of hope. The darkness flared and twisted but could not touch her now, not with the blinding fire she carried in her chest. A figure emerged, a distorted version of Lucy, alight with shadows, yet shimmering with the essence of her strength. "Mommy!" the figure wailed, echoing the familiar tone that filled Emily with warmth. "Help me break free." As the shadows brushed against her, she felt the familiar chill seep into her bones. But she matched it with a fierce love. "You are not lost," she screamed, summoning every ounce of her will. "Come to me, Lucy." At that moment, the light from the locket broke free, forming a bridge, illuminating the shades that hovered hungrily. "You can't have her!" Emily screamed. She charged forward, reaching out into the darkness. "Lucy, take my hand." The shadows shrieked louder, a cacophony of loss and desperation, but Lucy's figure began to take shape, her eyes brightening, the chilled void peeling away from her like winter's frost. "Mommy!" Lucy cried, reaching out as the gap began to close, pulling them apart. In a moment of raw urgency, Emily lunged, grasping her daughter's hand just as tendrils of darkness surged to reclaim them both. A surge of energy coursed through their clasped fingers. Love blossomed like a light pushing against shadows. Emily pulled harder, summoning everything she had ever felt for her child. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the world around them. The room cracked open, releasing a torrent of light that scattered the shadows like dust. "No!" the shadows shrieked as Emily and Lucy were pulled back into the world above, re-emerging into the attic bathed in soft, golden sunlight. The shadows dissipated into the corners of the room, shrieking in defeat, unable to overpower the bond of mother and daughter. Emily gasped for breath, joy washing over her as she enveloped Lucy in a tight embrace. "You're here. You're safe." Tears streamed down her cheeks, mingled with laughter bubbling from her chest. But before they could linger in the sweet relief of their reunion, a chill surged through the air, a reminder of what still stalked the edges of their reality. "Don't worry about them, Mommy," Lucy said softly, pulling back to meet her mother's gaze, her innocent face glowing. "You showed me how to be brave. And if they come back, we'll face them together." Emily smiled through the tears, filled with renewed strength. "Together," she echoed, realizing the strength of their bond was now forged even deeper. As mother and daughter stood hand in hand, a spark of hope ignited within the heart of Maplewood. The house, once a prison, shifted somehow, its shadows now subdued and the darkness tempered by their courage. They would not forget the lost children, nor the sacrifices made. The sun shone warmly through the window, a promise of new beginnings. They could finally let go of the past and step into a life unburdened by fear, embracing the laughter of possibility instead. With each step, Emily held her daughter close, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Let us go home," she said, the words curling easily from her lips. Yes, they would rebuild, and the shadows could retreat. Because they were free. And with that, the curtain fell over the haunted legacy, leaving behind a story of courage and love. echoing through Maplewood for generations to come. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others join our adventure. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support keeps our community alive.